Okay, so good morning everyone. So we will having a um, topic for today which is about history, and it's all about a linguistic journey exploring the grammar, vocabulary and history of Old English. So before I start, I want you guys to know what the objectives. First is letter A, understand the historical development of Old English. So student will be able to trace the origins of Old English from its Germanic roots, explain its evolution through internal changes and external influences, including the contact with Celtic and later Norman French, and describe its transition to Middle English. Letter B, analyze the key linguistic features of Old English. So students will be able to identify and explain the characteristic of Old English grammar, including case, gender, and verb conjugation. Vocabulary, including Germanic origins and later influences. Pronunciation, including sound shifts and changes. And the last is the writing system, which is including also its relationship to Latin alphabet. Letter C, interpret major works of Old English literature. So students will be able to read, analyze, and interpret at least one major work of Old English literature, such as Beowulf, considering its historical and cultural context and its literary significance. And the last one is the compare and contrast Old English with the modern English. So students will be able to identify and explain the significant differences between Old English and modern English in grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. So demonstrating an understanding of the historical changes that have occurred. So now let's move on to our real topic for today, which is what I said earlier about a linguistic journey, exploring the grammar, vocabulary, and history of Old English. So Old English, also known as Anglo-Saxon, is a West Germanic language that was spoken in England from approximately 450 to 1150 AD. So it's the ancestor of modern English, but it differed significantly in its grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. So I have here a summary covering key aspects. First is the historical context and origins. Old English emerged from the dialects brought to Britain by Anglo-Saxon settlers, primarily from areas of modern-day Germany and Denmark. So during the 5th and the 6th centuries, these groups displaced or integrated with existing Celtic-speaking populations. So people from Germany and Denmark, called Anglo-Saxons, moved to Britain and brought their languages with them. These languages mix with the language already spoken in Britain, so Celtic languages to be exact, and creating what we now call Old English. It wasn't a single sudden change, but a gradual blending over time rather. And for you guys to more imagine what the words I have here are some example of Celtic languages, both living and extinct. And it's spoken in Insular Celtic, spoken on islands. First is Irish, the official language of Republic of Ireland, spoken by about 1.8 million people. Next is the Manx, the language of the Isleman, nearly extinct but being revived. And the third one is the Welsh, the official language of Wales, spoken about 740,000 people. And number 4 is the Cornish, the language of Cornwall, extinct in the 18th century but being revived also. And the last one is the Breton, spoken in Brittany, France, with around 200,000 speakers. And I have here also the Continental Celtic, spoken on the mainland. So kung meron tayong Insular Celtic, spoken on islands, we have here also spoken on the mainland. First is we have Gaulish, the language of ancient Gaul, modern French, extinct since the Roman period. And the second one is the Celtiberian, spoken in the Liberian Peninsula, extinct na siya already. And these are just few examples. The Celtic languages are a diverse group with a rich history and unique characteristic. So now let's move on to development. So the language evolved over centuries, influenced by the contact with other languages and internal linguistic changes. Significant literary works emerged during this period, providing valuable insight into the language and culture. So habang tumatagal siya, it became powerful and meaningful. Okay, now let's move on to Norman conquest in 1066. So the Norman invasion dramatically altered the course of English language. Norman French became the language of ruling class, influencing vocabulary and the grammar. Old English gradually transitioned into Middle English, a period marked by significant linguistic changes. So this meant that Old English, the language of the common people, they say, started to change over time. Many French words enter the English language and some of the grammar also shifted. So this period of change is called Middle English. So here are some examples of words that are clearly of Middle English origin, meaning they entered the language during that period due to Norman French influence. First, we have the court, from Old French court, meaning yard or enclosure, but adapted into English to refer to the royal court. Next is the prison, from Old French prison, meaning captivity or imprisonment. Next is beef, from Old French bœuf, meaning ox or cattle, but adapted into English to refer specifically to the meat. Do you follow, guys? And the last one is the royal, from Old French, real meaning kingly, but adapted into English to describe something related to a king or a queen. So these words are all recognizable in English, modern English. They illustrate how the Norman conquest significantly changed the vocabulary of the language, introducing many French words into English. So we're already done talking about the historical context. Let's move on to key linguistic features. First is the grammar. So Old English had a highly inflected grammar, meaning that word endings changed significantly to indicate grammatical function, which is the case, number, gender, and tense. This contrasts sharply with modern English, which relies more on word order. And I have here another key grammatical features included for noun cases. First, we have nominative, refers to the grammatical case of noun or pronoun that function as the subject of a verb. Next is the accusative, refers to the grammatical case also of noun or pronoun that functions as the direct object of a verb. So the third one is the genitive, is a grammatical case that shows possession or ownership. It answers the question whose or of what. And the last one is the dative, is a grammatical case in some languages that indicates the indirect object of a verb. So we're done about the grammatical features. Let's move on to 3 grammatical genders naman. So we have here masculine, feminine, and neuter. So we all know naman about this. And grammatical gender is a system in which nouns are categorized into different classes, usually marked by articles, adjectives, and pronouns. It's not about the biological sex, but a grammatical features that affects how words are used and a sentence. So here's a breakdown for you guys. First is we have masculine. Forgive me for some error about the spelling. So now let's move on to masculine. Refers to nouns typically associated with male beings or adjectives with masculine characteristic. Second one is the feminine. Refers to nouns typically associated with a female beings or objects with feminine characteristic. And the last one is the neuter. Refers to nouns that are neither masculine nor feminine, often associated with inanimate objects, concepts, or abstract ideas. Or many languages like German, French, Spanish, and Russian have a grammatical gender. However, English doesn't have grammatical gender in this way. We use he for males, she for females, and it for objects and animals, regardless of their actual sex. So now let's go on to complex verb conjugations. We have here indicate tense, mood, person, and number. So complex verb constructions involve combining auxiliary verbs with main verbs to express various grammatical features like tense, mood, person, and number. So here's another breakdown for you guys. Example for tense. We have here present tense uses the base form of the main verb for the simply present and adds s or es for third person singularly. First we have simple present. I have here a sample. I walk, he walks, they walk. And the present progressive is I am walking, he is walking, they are walking. And for the future tense naman, uses will or going to before the main verb. For example, see simple future. I will walk, he will walk, they will walk. And the future progressive is I will be walking, he will be walking, they will be walking. So now let's move on to mood. Indicate mood express a statement of a fact or opinion. Like I walk to store. We have here imperative mood, which is the expresses a command or a request, walk to the store. And another one is subjective mood, expresses a wish, possibility, or hypothetical situation. Like, I wish I could walk to the store. It's important that he walks though. And the next one is the person. First person, I or we. And the second person is you. And the third person is he, she, it, or they. So now let's move on to the last example, which is the number. Singular refers to one person or thing, and the plural is refers to more than one person or a thing. For example, simple present or third person singular indicative mood. He walks to school every day. And next is the past progressive first person singular indicative mood. I was walking home and I saw her. And now let's go to future simple, second person plural, indicative mood. You will be able to walk to the park soon. And the last one is the present perfect simple. Third person singular, indicative mood naman. So she was walking to the store 3 times today. So you guys follow. Now let's move on to vocabulary. So a significant portion of Old English vocabulary is Germanic in origin. So many words are cognates, words with shared ancestry, with words in German, Dutch, and other Germanic languages. So however, the Norman conquest introduced a large influx or French and Latin vocabulary, leading to significant changes into the lexicon. Next, we have here the pronunciation. So the sounds of Old English were different from modern English, and we all know that because many sounds have shifted or disappeared completely. So Reconstructing the precise pronunciation is complex task for linguists because it's really difficult for them to know about it. So the last one is the writing system. So Old English was written using a modified version of the Latin alphabet known as the Anglo-Saxon Orthodox. So the writing system reflects the sounds of the language, but orthography or the spelling wasn't always consistent. So here is the example. As you can see guys, masyado siyang naiiba and it's too difficult for us, or it's too hard for the linguist to understand it more because of the different style of it. Next, we have the major literary works. So the surviving literary works from the Old English period of offering invaluable insight into the language and culture of the time. So we have here some example. First, the Beowulf, an epic poem considered the most important work of Old English literature. So Beowulf is considered the most important work of Old English literature for several reasons. First is the epic scale. Beowulf is a long and complex poem dealing with the heroic deeds, battles, and supernatural elements. It's a classic example of an epic poem which typically features a hero of great strength and courage for face extraordinary challenges. Next is the cultural significance of it, the culture, values, and beliefs. It showcases their worldview, including their relationship with fate, heroism, and importance of loyalty and honor. Next is the literary merit, masterful work of literature, showcasing sophisticated language, vivid imagery, and compelling storytelling. And the last one is the historical importance of it. So Beowulf is the only surviving epic poem written in Old English. So its preservation is a statement to the resilience of the Anglo-Saxon literary tradition. Also, the Beowulf is a powerful and influential work that stands as a cornerstone of English literature. So it's a statement to the artistic achievements of the Anglo-Saxons and offers a unique window into their culture and belief. So I have here another example, which is the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. So a series of annals recording historical events in England. As you can see, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle is a collection of historical records written in Old English, documenting events in England from the 5th to the 12th century. So it's a valuable primary source for understanding the Anglo-Saxon history and the culture. So now let's move on to the Gaedmon's Hymn, one of the earliest surviving examples of Old English poetry. So as you can see, guys, it's Gaedmon's Hymn is a short poem that praises God as the creator of the universe. So themes of creation and praise. So God's power. So I have here some example, and I want you guys to watch this video.
Në shullon herjan Hevan riches weird Metto de asmekte And his mog de thank Werk uldar fedur Swehi undragi hues Etchi trichte Urastielde
Okay, so as you hear it, guys, it's really relaxing and powerful telling the translation of this song. for the poem to be exact. So God's power is the poem begins by praising God's power and wisdom, right? Calling him heaven kingdom's guardian. So the measurer's might and the work of the glory of fathers. And the next is the creation of heaven and earth. So the poem then describes the creation of heaven and earth, emphasizing God's rule as the architect and creator. So God's gift to humanity. The poem concludes by stating that God created the earth for humanity, highlighting the importance of God's gift to mankind. And the interpretation of it is about the Christian theology. The poem reflects early Christians' beliefs about God's creation of the universe and his role in human history. And another is the praise and gratitude. The poem is a hymn of praise and gratitude to God for his creation and his love for humanity. And the last is the stewardship. The poem suggests that humans have responsibility to care for God's creation as they are stewards of the earth. So overall, Caedmon's hymn is a simple but profound poem that celebrates God's power and creativity and emphasizes the importance of praising and honoring Him. So now let's move on to the last that we have now about studying Old English today. So Old English is a challenging language to learn due to its significant differences from modern English. Like what I give you the example, it's really hard for them. However, it's a rewarding subject for those interested in historical linguistic, English philology, and Anglo-Saxon culture. So studying Old English requires specialized resources, including dictionaries, grammars, and translations of Old English texts. So that's how hard it is for us to understand it if we don't have any background about it. So in conclusion, guys, I want you to imagine it. I want you to imagine something while I'm saying something. Imagine English as a river. So Old English is the river's source. A long time ago, it flowed differently then. Its grammar was complex, like a winding path. And its roots were mostly Germanic, like rocks from a specific mountain range. Then a big event, which is the Norman conquest, happened, like a huge tributary joining the river, so bringing in a flood of French words. This changes the river's course and speed. So modern English is the river today, still carrying some of the original tracks, which is the Old English words, but flowing much faster and wider with many new additions. So studying Old English is the tracing the river back to its source. It's challenging, really, but reveals the fascinating origins of our language. That's all, guys. Thank you. So once again, I'm Nicole P. Priala from BSED English 1A.